Yes. There we go. Hello, 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 hello. I am live. I have not been live in, I don't know. I don't think probably any in 2020 in regards to my business. I'm going to go live on Instagram. If you are watching, drop below. I want to see if my comments are working. If I'm able to see the comments. So if you could just say hey or hello, so I know you're watching, so I can see if I can see the comments, which on this end I do not. So I'm just going to wait a few more seconds, but I am going to, today is my anniversary for my 1 year leap into full-time entrepreneurship. And I wanted to come on to go over some questions. Okay. Hey, Latoya. So I can see the comments. So good. I wanted to come on briefly just to share some of the lessons that I learned in my first year of business and to answer any questions anybody may have. So if you have questions, drop them below. I do have a few questions that people sent to me last week, so I'm going to answer those questions. So 1 second, I'm just going to go on Instagram and go live too. First year. Alrighty. So for those who don't know me, I can't even pin this comment right. For those who don't know, I'm Alteresa Clark. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So if you see me like looking to the side, I'm on Instagram as well. So for those who don't know, I'm Alteresa Clark. I am a CEO, a wife, a mom, a whole bunch of other things. But today is my 1 year anniversary in my business, Inspired for Purpose. And so I wanted to briefly come on here and just share some of the tips that I learned. I know I do have quite a few people on my personal Facebook page and on my Instagram who are also business owners who are interested in business. You do not have to have a private practice or be a therapist to get any of the tips that I'm gonna go over. They are general. They are tips for anybody who is interested in being a business owner or stepping out into whatever your calling or your purpose is. This can apply to any of those things, or even into your regular 9 to 5, pursuing whatever goal. But particularly, these are the things that I learned in my entrepreneurship journey. So I'm going to answer some questions, like I said, but if you have questions, drop them in the chat so that I can answer them, in between the topics. So it's a year. Inspired for Purpose I've been in private practice for 4 years, but November 1st last year, I decided to step out on faith, leave my 9 to 5 that I was there for almost 5 years, 4.5 years, I believe, and step out into my own business. So these are 7 lessons that I learned personally in my private practice along the way. And the first thing I learned was to invest in yourself. I know a lot of times we get all the free stuff we can get, trust me, on YouTube, on Instagram, everything you can get for free. I tried it. I tried the YouTube University, Google University, looking at other business owners, free lives, free Facebook stuff, joining their groups, getting the ebooks. I did it all. But it wasn't until I actually invested. Well, you can invest money, you can invest time, but you need to invest something. Because the reality is that in order to see change in your life, you're going to have to do something different. If you're used to the same old routine, in order for you to take yourself to another level, you are going to have to invest in yourself. Well, what if I don't have money? It's not always about money, but eventually you're going to have to realize that you have to go higher. You're going to have to invest time. If you give your job 40 plus hours a week, then you're going to have to give your business or your venture or whatever you want to do outside of your 9 to 5, you're going to have to give it just as much time, sometimes even more. I know for me, I had to sacrifice. I would work my 9 to 5, and then I would see clients after work a few times a week, and even on Saturdays, because the reality is I knew I wanted to eventually, excuse me, I wanted to eventually be my own boss. I knew years ago that I wanted to do my own private practice. And I'm sorry for those who don't know what I do. I am a therapist, so I have actually a group practice now in South Florida, where we provide mental health counseling services for those in Florida. Right now, we are virtual due to COVID, so we see people throughout the whole state of Florida. So just to give you a little background, because I'm saying private practice, group practice, so everybody knows what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, so the first thing was invested in myself. I had to eventually spend money to get a coach, to invest in programs, to buy books to read, to listen to podcasts. I had to change my mindset. In order for me to do that, I had to invest more. The second thing I had to realize was to be my authentic self, to be you. The reality is that there are so many people that are doing what you do. For the most part, nothing is new under the sun. So there are so many people doing what you do. But how do you set yourself apart? You do that by just being you, by doing whatever you feel is as close to your authentic self as possible. Why? Because the reality is that if there are, let's say you are an author, right? There are so many authors out there. What sets you apart? What makes your book different than the other nonfictions or the other fantasies or the other any type of books out there? It's you. You are the secret sauce, is what I like to say. You are the secret sauce that makes it different. So being yourself, for me, I guess the biggest example of that nowadays is, for those who may like her or may not, is Cardi B, right? She is her authentic self, whether you like her or not. She kind of stays true to who she is. And despite what people think of her, she sticks to it. Now, she may not be your cup of tea or not, but as an example of being authentic, she was the first person that popped in my mind. But anyways, being you, despite if you're weird, if you're, people don't like you, people don't really, you might be an introvert, you might be shy, you might not be vocal, you might stutter, you might be short, you might be tall, whatever the case may be, is being yourself is one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself. Because the reality is that the world will always try to change us, to mold us to what the norm is, so to speak. But when you stay in your lane and you be authentic to who you are inside and out, trust me, the stuff will come, the money will come, the passion will come, the friendships will come, the opportunities, the connections, the networks, they all will come as long as you're staying true. Now, sometimes it's hard, because we want to fit in sometimes, and we want to make sure that we are cookie cutter and that we can fit in. But the reality is like, for myself as a therapist, there are so many therapists in Florida, in South Florida, right? There's even more therapists in Miami. Even, there's not a whole bunch of us, but there are quite a few black therapists that are dope in Florida, that are dope in Miami and South Florida. But what sets me apart is me, right? Being authentically me. And when I first started, because I just wanted clients, I was just like, I'll take everybody. I'll try and just fit everybody. I can see you. I can do this and I can do that. The reality is I couldn't. But because I wanted to fit in, to be able to take a huge amount of people, I just started to change what I wanted, the business person that I wanted to be. And I realized that wasn't working. So the second one is be you, be authentic. The third one is, you may lose people along the way. This is hard for a lot of people, because this was a hard lesson that I had to learn, that not everybody is going to be with you for the ride. It is definitely, some people are there for the season and some people are not. The reality is that it's not always a bad thing when you lose people. We sometimes get caught up on, well, they've been in my life for 14 years and, they've been in my life through my childhood and my friend and my She was there at my wedding and all these wonderful things, and great, wonderful. But the reality is that everybody has a season, and sometimes we hold on to people that are not supposed to go with us along the journey anymore. They've served their purpose. And the reality is that it's sad. Trust me, I understand. But when you elevate in whatever your lane is, some people just will not be able to go with you. And that is okay. No hard feelings. I heard the quote to say, I want you to eat, but you just can't eat at my table anymore. I want you to eat. Like, girl, eat. Do your thing. You just can no longer eat with me. And I love that saying, because the reality is it's no hard feelings. It's just that at this table, your time is up. And that's also okay. But, people tend to make it seem as though when you lose friends, sometimes it's a horrible thing. And granted, in the beginning it might be, but the reality is that people have a purpose in our lives, and maybe that purpose of that season is up. Doesn't mean that you're going to be alone. God may bring other people in your life who are like-minded, right? So if you are, for example, like me, God brought other therapists in my life, so that other therapists in private practice, other Black women in private practice who are also therapists, that one I could lean on for support. If I had questions, if I needed guidance, if I had any issues, I could call them up, text them up, and ask them and conversate with them. We were on the same page. So it made my life easier in the sense that, as opposed to someone else who doesn't necessarily walk in that lane with me, it made it even harder. And so number 3 is you may lose people along the way, and that's okay. Let me see your comments. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be looking at them. Hey, David, my brother's on. Sarinthia, thank you. David said, I've lost so many people. It's true. You do lose people along the way, and it's sad, but eventually this may seem harsh, but you get over it. You get over it. Maybe not in the beginning, but you eventually get over it. So the next one, number 4, is change your surroundings. This ties into number 3. The reality is that I heard a saying say it, and we've heard it before. Your network determines your net worth. Your network determines your net worth. Meaning the people who you have in your circle determine how far you're going to go normally. Does that mean every single time? No. But that means is that if you want to be, let's say, a millionaire, but you hang around people who barely go to work, what happens is that stuff rubs off on you. The saying that we used to hear when we were children, birds of a feather flock together, that's absolutely true. And when we're young, we're like, yeah, whatever. But as I went through this year process, I realized that I had to change my surroundings. I had to change the people who were in my inner circle, because the reality is I had a goal. And in order for me to reach that goal, things that used to matter to me didn't matter anymore. For example, I love a good brunch. I love to hang out with my girlfriends, but I no longer had the time every weekend to go to brunch and go here and go there. Why? Because I was building. I had my feet to the ground and I just started running. Does that mean I didn't have a life? No, that's not what I'm saying. But that just meant that the things that I used to be important to me were not so much important. Wasn't so much important to watch the reality TV and gossip every night at 8 o'clock or every week that stuff just didn't matter anymore. Now, I still love a good reality show now, but I'm saying that just the importance of those things became, I guess, frivolous to me because my mindset was somewhere different. So sometimes you have to literally either physically change your surroundings or the people around you need to change. Start hanging around people who you want to be like, in the sense. If you want to be an author, then start hanging around authors. Start going to networking events, of course, pre-COVID. But start going to networking events where there are authors there. If you want to own a business, start being around business owners. If you want to sing, right? Start hanging around singers. Changing your surroundings to the atmosphere that you want to be in. Sometimes it's hard because we have our little cliques and we have our groups and our people we hang around with all the time. And that's okay. but shift your surroundings some to be around people who are like-minded, people who are on the same page as you, people who can elevate and help you elevate and help you get to where you need to be. It does wonders by changing your surroundings. And this was hard for me too, to change my surroundings, because I am a person who at first I don't like change. Change is scary. And I had to get to a place where I couldn't allow the fear of change to stop me from elevating in my life and moving forward. So changing your surroundings. The next one is don't live in fear. Now, fear is inevitable. Fear comes. We're human. It's a natural emotion, but you can't let it stop you. I remember, because I've been like going down memory lane with my family, with friends, all this past week and weekend. Last year when I was going to take the leap, I had planned to leave later, I think in December. I kept pushing the date back. I pushed the date back. I said October, then November, then December, and then I said January. I had pushed the date back a few times, but it was all because of fear. The reality is nothing was different between November and January in regards to my plan and what I had lined up, but fear. Until I eventually said, you know what, now is the time. And for me, in my experience, that God had made the atmosphere at my old job so uncomfortable for me. It was so much stuff going on to where, and I told my brother this the other day, I was just like, if it wasn't all that drama and all that toxicity at work, at my old job, I probably would have stayed even longer. I probably would have been comfortable, scared, and stagnant. I would have stayed there even longer. That's the reality. But I'm glad that the atmosphere there, it kind of like pushed me to be like, this is not making you happy anymore. Like you're dreading coming to work. Like you are physically having symptoms when you're in the parking lot dreading going into this office. It is time, girl, for you to get up, make a plan, and execute it. And for me, it was kind of like I started knowing that it was time. But for other people, and it may not be your story to leave your 9 to 5. It may be time for you to start that business or write that book or take that trip or step out and meet new people. Whatever fear is holding you back in doing, it might be that. So not allowing fear to stop you, because fear will actually paralyze you to where you have no longer desire to dream anymore. You may stop dreaming. You may stop hoping. You may stop praying. You may stop seeing visions of where you want to be in your life. Fear will stop you from doing all of those things. And you will look up and years will pass and you will be like, how did I get here? I had these dreams. I had these visions. I used to dream and now I don't. I used to want these things and now I don't. And a lot of it is fear, because fear literally will have you stuck to where you cannot move at all. So number 5 is don't live in fear. Number 6 is stop complaining and do something about it. We all complain. I do, but I try not to complain as much, because the reality is that all of that complaining is doing what? What is the complaining doing? You are complaining. I mean, at my old job, like we would have so many venting sessions, or I would talk about it at home. I would get at home and complain. I would talk to my friends and complain. Everybody who listened, I would complain. And eventually, I forgot who told me, but it was somebody that told me, like, how long are you going to complain? Like, you've been complaining for a year, literally, for a year. When are you going to stop complaining and do something about it? And I said, what do you mean do something about it? I'm talking to you. And she said, no, take an action step instead of just complaining. And I went home and thought about what she said. And from that moment, I was just like, she's right. I'm just sitting here complaining, which is doing nothing at all for me. I'm complaining about her, him, work, this, that, this environment, and I'm not doing anything about it. And that moment, the next day, I said, it's time to plan my exit strategy. Like, at this point, I was miserable at work. Like, comment in the chat if you've ever been miserable at your job. Well, if you've ever been, or if you are miserable at your job now, comment in the chat and let me know if you want to. I was miserable at my job. No shame in me saying that. I hated it. Now, I love being a social worker. I love helping people. That I didn't hate. I hated the environment at work. It was very toxic at that time. I loved what I did, but just the environment at work clouded to doing, even helping the patients at where I used to work, to where I was just like, yeah, if I clocked in at 9, I was ready to go at 9:01. Like, I hate it. I did not like it. Oh yeah, my sister's here. Yes, I had to get the courage to leave. Hey Jessica, hey Kim. Yes, so I hated my job. Some people don't have that story. Some people, they didn't hate their job. They just knew it was time to leave because of money or, the lack of growth. Mine was it had a lot to do with just not liking it. And I knew that the time was coming to an end. I just needed to prepare myself and doing the steps that I needed to do in order to make that shift. And so I started putting action. I stopped complaining and I said, what are you going to do in order to change the situation? What are you going to do to make your life better so that you're not miserable? I also got sick a few months before I put in my notice. And it was stress induced. It was so much stress. And sometimes we don't realize how our stress can affect our physical health, but it absolutely can. When you are experiencing high levels of stress, and it wasn't even my personal life, it was all work. And the reality is, this is what I tell people. I'm just like, you spend 40 plus hours at work. Of course, work affects you. You spend most of your time at work, most of your day at work. You spend less time at home awake. You spend more of your day at work. So 8+ hours. And sometimes it was more than 8 hours. I worked in a hospital setting, so we worked hard. Let me just say that. Jessica, stress sick is a real thing, so is burnout. Absolutely. I was 1,000% burnt out. I was no good to any of the patients I worked with. I was no good to anybody there. I literally was just clocking in to get a check, and that's it. Like, it was like the job had sucked my happiness, sucked the life out of me. And I know it sounds extreme, and people may be like, well, girl, the job was that bad? Listen, when you are a dreamer, I'm a dreamer. Some of you on here might be a dreamer. When you're a dreamer, when you know God has placed something in you to do, it's hard for you to be somewhere where you know you're not supposed to be. Now, granted, I'm not telling you guys to just get up and quit your jobs, but I'm saying that was the road for me. But also, fear stopped me for a while. I had turned in my resignation for the first time in 2018, and my job countered and gave me a pay increase. So I stayed an extra year. And I told myself, listen, you're going to get this increase, girl, but this 2018, you got this increase, but you're not going to stay more than a year. I got the increase September, October of 2018, and I put my notice in September 2019. Because at my job, we had to give 30-day notice. So a year later, I was out, but 2018, I did it. And hindsight is always 2020 because I wasn't ready in 2018. I wasn't, sadly to say. And so everything worked out the way it was supposed to. But I go back to say all that to say is that stop complaining and do something about it. If something is making you unhappy in life, whether it's your job, your relationship, excuse me, anything in your life, change the situation if you can. Sometimes life deals us cards that we cannot change. We have no control over, and that's understandable. But the things we can change, life is too short. We have learned that in 2020 that you can be here one moment and gone the next. And so that's one of the lessons that I learned in 2020 is life is too short to be unhappy. If there's something you can do about your unhappiness, change it. Stop complaining, because trust me, the people you're complaining to, they are tired of hearing it too. They may not tell you, but my friend did. She was like, listen, I'm tired of you complaining about the same thing. Like, what are you going to do about it, girl? Like, literally, it's been too long. You got to do something. So that's number 6. Stop complaining and do something about it. And the last one is trust God. Trust God. They're not in any particular order, because that probably would be number 1, trust God. But that was probably the most profound lesson that I learned, was to trust God. Every step of the way, you guys see the polished version of this, right? You guys see, whoa, she's hit a year and she has 8 staff and she's doing her thing. Granted, that is the polished version, but this journey was hard. There were moments where I wanted to quit. There was moments that I was like, I'm going to go get a job. This not for me. There were moments where in the beginning, where I was like, Lord, you're going to have to make a way. Like, I had a plan, but things are not looking right. 2020 hit, and I was terrified when the pandemic hit. I felt like, well, I wasn't even 6 months into my business full time, and I'm like, this pandemic hit, am I going to survive? Like, how am I going to shift? Like, how am I going to make money to add to the household? And, I had all these fears. And God said, I brought you to it. I'm going to take you through it. You got to trust me. And I know for a lot of us, trust, keeping our faith and trusting God for me has always been a struggle. Because if it don't look right in my face, I'm like, well, this just not adding up, God. Like, how are we going to get 1 + 1 = 2? Because it's not adding up right now. And God would say, trust me, this is where you need to activate your faith. Activate your faith. Activate your faith. And for believers who are on here, sometimes it's hard for us to see in the midst of a storm, or it's hard for us to see in the clouds. It's like, okay, well, you say it's going to be a land of milk and honey on the other side of the storm. Well, when I'm going to get through the hurricane? How is this going to add up? But the reality is that's where we have to put, which I love this saying, put feet to our faith, which is absolutely true. Put feet to your faith and move. If God tell you to move, move. If God tell you to stay, stay. But with all of that throughout this whole year, I have absolutely had to trust God 1,000%. I mean, if I could sit and tell you guys the stories of how God has just blown my mind. When I left my job, my goal was just to have a private practice. My initial goal was not to have staff. Literally, I was like, Lord, let me just make it. Let me just make my salary. That was my goal. Lord, let me just make my salary and I'll be happy. God, we tell God the little stuff, and God is like, I can blow your mind. Why are you just asking me for that little thing? But the lack of faith. So I was like, Lord, let me just get this. Let me just get this little thing, or let me just get this little thing. And God is like, I can give you so much more, but you asking for that little thing. And so the pandemic hit this year, and I was just like, well, I hope I can stay open. I hope this, I hope that. My fears kicking in now. I'm thinking I have to shut my business down, go get a job. And I know this pandemic has been hard for a lot of people. I have lost family members in 2020. I've lost a family member to COVID. I have lost people close to me this year. It's just been hard for a lot of people. But what I will say is that God has definitely sustained my business in 2020. I went from just me to now 8 staff. Like, that just blew my mind. And it wasn't the plan initially, but it came with the growth and abundance. And I realized that I needed to shift. I needed to trust God. Like, God is, I'm leading you. You have to trust me. And I'm like, well, God, I don't know. Like what we tell God all the time. I don't know. And you know what? I relented. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trust you, God. I am going to finally let go and let God and trust you. And I did, and I don't regret it at all. He has definitely showed up and showed out in my business life, in my business, in my personal life. You know, so many people have lost jobs and sick and died, and it's just been a rough year for a lot of people. And I'm not saying it hasn't affected me some way, shape, or form, because it has. Like I told you guys, I've lost loved ones. But God has kept me. And I say that to say, all of that to say is this is not to brag. This is not to boast. This is not to say, oh, my life is better than yours. This is literally to be a testament, a testimony to the people who are listening, that if God can do it for me, he can do it for you. If he can take a dream and make it reality in my life, the same dreams that you guys have, the same passions and the purpose that he put in your life, it can come to pass too. We just have to put feet to our faith and walk it out. And for me, I had to put feet to my faith and walk it out in this year. And I absolutely did. In the beginning, I was kicking and screaming because I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. But I also knew that I didn't want to go back to work for anybody. Like, I knew I didn't want to, but there were moments where fear kicked in. And I would think like, well, maybe I need to go get a job. When the pandemic hit and everything shut down, I was like, well, maybe I got to go get a part-time job. Like, I don't know how this is going to shift. And not only did it shift, but my business tripled during the pandemic. So for me, if I would have went back to work just because of fear, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I say all that to say is to trust God. So the 7 lessons I learned, to go over them again, is invest in yourself, whether it's time, money, whatever it is, invest in yourself. Be authentic. Be you. Don't change who you are because you feel like society wants you to change, or you have to live up to this expectation of something that you are not. Number 3 is you may lose people along the way. Life happens. People have seasons, and sometimes the seasons change just like the weather. And not everybody is going to be in your life forever. And that was a lesson learned. As you elevate, things change, things shift in your life. And you might lose people along the way. Change your surroundings. Sometimes you have to change the people you're around, or literally the places that you go to. You may no longer be able to go to those places again. Don't live in fear. Fear can definitely stop you from moving forward. So not living in fear. Number 6 is stop complaining. Stop complaining and do something about it. I said that before. There's only so much complaining that people in your circle and people around you are going to want to listen to before they're like rolling their eyes like, here we go again. So stop complaining and do something about it. And the last one is trust God. Throughout whatever journey, storm, situation you go through, trust him every step of the way. It may not seem like we can see it to the end. It may not seem the way we need it to seem. Things may not add up. Money may be short. Things don't work out. Things you had planned stop. 2020 is a testament to that. Everybody had new decade. Yeah, 2020 goals. And life said, boom. Global pandemic. So things may not always look the way we want them to look, but this is where you have to put your faith in God and you have to trust him. So that is the 7 tips, or the 7 things that I wanted to share with you guys in regards to the 7 lessons I learned in my first year of full-time entrepreneurship in my now group practice. I wanted to share these things with you guys. They are not just strictly for business owners. Every tip I told you guys, or lesson, you don't necessarily have to be a business owner to apply that to your personal life. Not by no shape or form at all. These things you can absolutely apply to your personal life as well as your professional or your business life, or any dream or goal that you have, and you might be sitting on many dreams and things that God has planted in you to do, and fear is stopping you from doing them. Then this is especially for you, because as we all learned this year, life is short. We don't know what's going to happen today or tomorrow. The election is tomorrow, and God help us all. But we don't know what's going to happen. And this is where you have to step out sometimes on faith. Now, I'm not saying just, Teresa said I'm just going to step out. No. Yes, that's the first part, but you also need a plan, right? You need a plan on whatever your goal or dream is. Absolutely, plan it is absolutely necessary. You can plan, but then also life happens. But at least you want to know that you have a plan to how you're going to reach that goal, or an outline or an idea. So I say all that to say is that you can apply this to your personal or professional life. So I have a few minutes. If you guys have any questions, drop your questions in the chat. I'm going to answer any that you may have. It can be professional, personal, business questions, anything you want to ask me about my journey. I'm open to answering any questions. My goal was to do this until 8:30, so I have literally 6 minutes. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram, if you have any questions, share them. Oh, right. Somebody did ask me a question from Instagram. How did I stay consistent? And I don't remember who asked me that question now, but they asked me on Instagram, how did I stay consistent in the year? And what I will say is that when you're passionate about something, when you are excited about something, for me, I didn't necessarily have to push myself to do anything. Well, let me not say that. I didn't have to push myself hard to do this, to do what I'm doing, because I love what I'm doing. And it's something, when you love what you do, as opposed to working at my job where I literally had to like force myself to get up out the bed, force myself to get, like, it was hard. It was horrible. That was different. This part of the journey, is it easy? No, but I don't have to really push myself that much. The reality is that when you're your own boss, you don't work, you don't eat. So if you want to lay in the bed all day and not work, then you're not going to eat. So that was also in the back of my mind, right? It's like, girl, you got to work, because there is no consistent check every 2 weeks or however often you get paid, like when you work at a 9-to-5. So therefore, you have to rely on what you do. Of course, until you get staff, then your staff works and, you get paid from there. But when it's just you in the beginning, you don't want to get out the bed and work, you're not going to eat. So that was also one of the biggest things that kind of like helped me to stay consistent, but also the excitement of being in what I love to do and being able to not only love it, but walk in my purpose, walk in the thing that God has placed me on this earth to do. So that was also another way that I stayed consistent. Then little things like I have planners, I have, goals that I do every week. I'm pretty diligent about that, but there are moments where I feel lazy too, and I'm like, I can lay in bed today, especially working from home. Like, anyways, that's another story, but that's how I stay consistent. So does anybody else have another question? Drop it in the chat if you have a question. Let me know before I sign off. Looking on Instagram if I have any questions. Anybody have any questions? Let me check my messages. I think I had one other question. The other question I do have is, how did you know it was time to take a leap? So I talked about that a little bit earlier. For me, I knew it was getting close to take that leap because I hated my job. I didn't like it at all. So I knew that it was getting real close for me to leave. But like I also said, there was a lot of toxic stuff that was happening at my job. So I knew it was either I leave or I get real ghetto up in here, like like cursing people out and just doing stuff that wasn't in my character to do. Like literally, I would go to work, like I just want one person to say something to me, and this might be the day that I slap her. Like that was where I was at. Shameful to say it, but that's really where I was. Like I really did not like where I was. So I knew that God was literally like pushing me, like, I'm making you uncomfortable. Like, get the hint. I'm literally making you uncomfortable. Like, you're having stress. You're physically feeling the stress. You're also now very unhappy. Like, all of these things lined up within 2019. It was like sign after sign after sign. And I was already doing my private practice part-time, which is the other piece. I didn't just start out fresh. Some people do. But I already had a practice that was part-time. So I had clients already. I was seeing clients already on the side, as it's like side hustling. So I had the structure already. I had the business. I had all the logo. I had everything. I had the referrals. I had an office space already. It was literally me figuring out things financially and really stepping out of the fear. So that was kind of when I knew, okay, it's time for you to go. The question I have, hey, Rashawn, what gave you the confidence to pursue your own business and offer your perspective to others? Confidence. So this goes back to number 2, being your authentic self, being you. So I would say I'm in the middle of an introvert and extrovert. Some people see me as an extrovert. And then there are times where I'm an introvert where I'm like, I could just not talk to everybody in this room and I would be happy. But I would say is that my confidence grew when I started doing the work. When I first started doing the work, meaning therapy, my confidence because I had a degree, so I'm like, okay, I have this degree, I have this license, which means clinically I should be able to do it. But it wasn't until I started actually doing it and realizing that, oh, wait, girl, you really can do this. Like, there was some moments where I second guessed myself. I didn't think I was good enough. How am I going to stand out? I'm not going to get clients. Like, there was a point in my business journey, because I've been doing this now for 4 years. But in year 2, my confidence was all the way down the drain, like to where I was about to like quit being a therapist. There was a moment that I did stop being a therapist and just went strictly to being a life coach. And this is no shade to life coaches, but that just wasn't for me. I realized that, oh, no, this is not my calling. But because I was trying to emulate what I saw on Instagram, right? I see all these 6-figure life coaches and business coaches on Instagram and Facebook. I'm just like, oh, well, forget therapy. That's not where it's at. I'm just going to be a life coach. And I took everything down from being a therapist and put like I was a purpose coach. And I was just trying to emulate people I saw on social media. And when I realized like 6 months into it, I'm just like, girl, you're not making no money doing this. Like, people really not reaching out to you to be a life coach. Like, people are asking you to do therapy and you're turning these clients down because you're saying you're a life coach. And so, but that was the moment that I realized I didn't have confidence in myself. Because I retreated, which is also another sign of fear. There was fear there and I retreated. And once I hit that, I guess that low point in my business, I realized like, okay, let's start over. Like, you're trying to be like everybody else. Take a step back, work on yourself, like do some mental work, right? Because that's also, we got to work on our mental and emotional wellness. And I had to do some mental work and realize that, yeah, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And fear and the lack of confidence pushed me to being a life coach, but that wasn't where my passion was. And so I started journaling, which is also one of my self-care things. I started journaling and just doing some introspective work, like working on myself and building up that confidence to know that, girl, you can do it. And once I started doing that again, it's like when I started hitting the ground running, rebuilding my practice, started seeing clients again. I started getting back to a place of where I felt happy in my business again. Because when I was doing the coaching, I was not happy, but I was just like, oh, I'm trying to hit these 6 figures like I see this girl on Instagram doing. Like, I'm trying to be like these other people, and I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't being me. So I know that was a long answer, but that's also how I got to get into my confidence, because I didn't have it out the back, like straight out the gate. Some people say like, oh, you're so confident and oh, this and that. And it's like, it's a journey. Just like anything you see on social media, like we see the finished product, right? We see the people in the fancy cars and the fancy bags and the 6 figures and the this and the that. We don't see the journey most of the time. We see the end result. And a lot of times social media will have you judging yourself, comparing yourself to other people's stories, and we only see the end result. We don't know the fire or the hell they had to go through to get there, or the stuff that they did that we wouldn't have done to get there. We don't really know that part. We just see the finished result, and we crave it. We're like, oh yeah, I want to be like her, and I want this and I want that. And the reality is like, if you knew the true story, you may change your mind when saying you want it. So I say all that to say is that sometimes our confidence is also shaken when it comes to social media, because we compare ourselves to other people's journey. And that was a lesson I had to learn about being me and being authentic to myself, is you can't compare yourself to other people's journey. You don't know what they've been through. So, but long story short, it took a process for me to build my confidence. I hope I answered your question. I know that was pretty long, but I hope I answered it. Any other questions, guys? Anybody else have a question at all before I sign off? I also want to say, while I'm waiting for if anybody has a question, is my support system. That wasn't one of the things I learned on. I didn't put, but my support system absolutely has been my rock through this whole process. Outside of God, I have to salute my husband, because that man right there he's not a social media person. You may not see him on social media, but he is absolutely my rock. Like, I have 2 boys. For those who don't know, I have 2 kids, 9 and 4. And there were moments where I had to work late. I'm speaking. I got to travel. I got to do this. I got to do that. And 1,000%, he's like, I got you. I got you. Like, even from the beginning, when I told him I wanted to quit my job, his initial reaction was like, what? You want to quit? But once I sat down and really told him, and he also saw how miserable and unhappy I was and how it was physically affecting me, he was like, listen, we're a team, and we're gonna work it out. Like, I know that this is your dream and this is your purpose, and God has placed this inside of you to do. I'm gonna support you 1,000%. And from the very beginning, he has. For those who don't know, me and my husband have been together since high school. So we've literally grown up together from 18 and up. So we have seen each other through a lot of ups and downs and growth. And I say all that to say is that he has definitely been my rock, as well as my other family members and friends. Like, support goes a long way. Sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. This is like a bonus about support. Sometimes you have support, which is amazing, and sometimes you don't. And if you don't have that support, do not let it stop you. Keep going. Keep doing it. It's amazing when you have those people to support you. It's amazing. But when you don't, the road can be lonely. But I tell you this, God will always send somebody to assist you along the way. You won't be completely alone. It may feel that way, but there will always be a door open. There will always be someone to connect to. When I tell you that I have been connected to so many amazing women. Jessica is one of them. Before I left my 9-to-5, I did a consultation with her. Sat down, was like, I'm ready to take this leap. And she's like, did you do this? You got this. Like, she had it all laid out. And I was just like, but I appreciated having that conversation before I took the leap, because a lot of those things I had to really think about before I left. And so she's just one of the people. But I say all that to say is that support matters. Whatever journey or dream you have, support is amazing. But on the other side of that, for people who don't have support, it may feel lonely, but don't let that stop you from living your dream and walking in your purpose. Someone will come along the way. Someone you least expect. Strangers. Listen, strangers have been more supportive than some of the people that I thought would be supportive in my life. Strangers meaning I don't know them. I met them through Facebook. Most of the people who are in my circle now, well, not most of them, some of the people in my circle now, I met on Facebook or Instagram. Connections, business deals I've gotten from Facebook, from someone saying, I saw your post and they spoke about me in a room, and they nominated me for a speaking engagement, or like just things you would never think of from strangers on Facebook. So I say all that to say is that we need the support sometimes, but also don't let it stop you if you don't have it. That door will open regardless if you have someone cheering you on or you don't. Sometimes you need to cheer your own self on and pat yourself on your own self on the back and say, you got this, girl, you got this, son, you got this, sir. Keep going. And so but I had to say that I've had support from the very beginning of this journey, and I don't take that for granted at all. For the people who are in my corner, for the people who support me, for the people, whether you bought a product, whether you said something encouraging, whether you shared my stuff, whether you like it, whether you cheer me on from the sidelines, or whether you wish me well, I appreciate all of that. I am so grateful and so full to be where I am today. And I wanted to come on here. Listen, I have cried today. I've cried all weekend. Like, I am not a crier. For people who know me, I am not a crier. But I have cried so much this weekend, but happy tears. Because to say a dream, I can't even say it. To say that you want something and to ask God for something and been praying for something for so long, to see it manifest, it's like, it's mind-blowing. I can't even describe it. I can't even talk about it. But the reality is that I've been happy. These are happy tears. And to know that the lives that I'm touching and the lives that we're touching in my practice is just amazing. So I wanted to come on here before I get emotional, because I'm a G. No, I'm just playing. But anyways, I wanted to share those tips with you guys. I wanted to be able to pour something into you, to encourage you, to motivate you. If you have any questions outside of this live, please send me a DM. If you know me personally, send me a text. Any way I can help, absolutely I will. So thank you, every single person who is tuning in to this and everybody who's going to watch the replay. I wanted to share this with you all on my anniversary of my 1 year in full-time private practice, well, now group practice, and just share some of the things that I learned. So hopefully you don't make the same mistakes, or something you can take along your journey. It doesn't have to be business-wise. It can be personal journey, whatever journey you're taking in this life. So thank you again for tuning in. I wish you all the best. We are almost out of 2020. Be safe. If you did not vote, please vote tomorrow. If you didn't early vote, this is like a church announcement. If you didn't vote, please vote tomorrow. Please vote. Your vote matters. You matter. If we want to see change, this is not, also stop complaining, do something about it. Please go out and vote if you are listening to this video. Again, be safe out there. Take care of yourself. Be blessed. And I wish you guys a great evening. Good night.